Welcome to Scriptural Snapshots, brought to you by Living Faith Ministries in Kaiser, West Virginia, where we bring the living Word of God into your life. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. We're still looking at the law, and more specifically, we're looking at the Ten Commandments. Now, we know that laws are spiritual, have a spiritual base, but they're also in the natural laws. In other words, they regulate our activities, our behaviors. They set limits and boundaries for us. They are directing us. Laws are directing us to a particular way of living and even sometimes to a particular way of believing. And in the Ten Commandments, the very first, and I believe this is the jumping off point for all the other commandments, is that you shall have no other gods before me. We said in 1 Timothy 1:8, but we know that the law is good if one uses it lawfully. Now we say that because you can misuse even good laws. You can restrict them, you can manipulate them, you can ignore them, you can pretend they don't exist. Laws have to be used lawfully. And that means according to the will of God, according to the pattern of who God is. And we've been talking about how our founding fathers in the United States, when they came together to form our nation, they had made a study of men, they had made a study of governments, and they said, we've discovered that God, the Christian God, Yahweh, has endowed people with three fundamental desires. This is called natural law. They have the desire of life, to live. They have the desire of liberty, to be free, to not be bound up in slavery to another person, and to have the pursuit of happiness, that they could do what they wanted to do without the government saying you can't do that, to be able to start a business, to be able to live a particular lifestyle and pattern, and to earn and to keep what they produce, because they lived in a time when government just took away stuff. They could come into your house and they could say, this is too nice for you, we're going to take it for taxes. Say, no, you can't do that. This is what our founding fathers came up with as the basic guiding principles. And they also went on to say that government, a right government, protects the rights that God has given to people. This is the proper role of government. And when government fails to protect the rights that God has given to individuals of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then that government is unjust. And that government needs to be changed, or at least the laws need to be altered in order to reflect the God-given rights and desires that is in every human being. Well, in Galatians chapter 3, verses 23 to 25, it says, but before faith, we were kept under guard by the law, kept for the faith which would afterward be revealed. Therefore, the law was our tutor to bring us to Christ, that we might be justified by faith. But after faith has come, we are no longer under a tutor. See, he gives us the understanding of what law is about. Law is how do I say this? There's an inward law of the Spirit of God. And if you're born again, if you know God, if you pursue God, this will be revealed to you. Abraham knew this law. Isaac and Jacob understood this law. Moses understood the law. Joshua understood the law. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Hosea, Joel, all the prophets of old understood this law. It was spiritual, and they lived according to that law. But now, if you're not walking in the Spirit of God, if you're not walking in the love of God, then you need an external boundary to keep you, to tutor you, to teach you how you ought to live. And so when we look at the Ten Commandments, we see in these laws, this is God explaining to us, this is how you ought to live. It's a tutor. It's to teach you. It's to direct you to God. And so the very first commandment is, you shall have no other gods before me. That's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward, and yet we confuse it, we water it down, we do all kinds of things. Well, God's just kind of an afterthought. No, God has got to be the central thought. He's got to be the one that dominates our life every moment of every day. And I said, well, Gordon, what? No. It's like being in prayer continuously. That doesn't mean that you're on your knees and have your hands folded and in your prayer closet and praying 24/7. You can't do that. But you can walk in communion with God. You can walk in righteousness. You can walk in holiness. It doesn't mean that, oh, I've got to think about God, 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 God. No, it's not being super spiritual. It's recognizing from whom your authority comes from and to whom you are accountable to. This is what it means to walk in the hand of God, that you are accountable to God and you are responsible to God for everything that you do. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. God bless you.